Sports. Neal McCready joins Ole Miss, covers Ole Miss. We had him on a lot up until the Sugar Bowl. We've had him on since then, spring drills, and he joins us on Sick on 365 Radio. So Jalen Robinson, from UCF joins the Ole Miss transfer portal gang.
Ole Miss is like they're like the baseball team that just says, you know what, screw it. We don't need a farm system. Let's just sign all the free agents. And that's kind of them right now. They've signed people from everywhere, every position. They to say they've been active in the portal, fellas, is an understatement.
Neal, one of those guys active in the portal, and maybe it was because, they do need wide receivers, and a guy like Robinson can help them. But Jackson Dart, he's there. I guess people assume he's the starter, but from what I've read, it doesn't seem like he really put Luke Altmaier away all that much in the spring.
Yeah, no, he did not. It's new program, new routine. New offensive coordinator in Charlie Weiss Jr. for him. All that stuff. He had his moments, but he also had a lot of bad moments too. Was kind of turnover prone. Took some chances that you can't take as a quarterback at the Power 5 level and get away with it. Certainly not at the SEC level with defensive backs, and he's as talented as some of the ones Ole Miss has, and he struggled a good bit. And no, I think it's one hell of an assumption at this point that he's the guy. He's still got a shot, certainly a good shot. But Luke Altmaier, people forget this because with the portal, you just get so obsessed with the newest toy. But Luke was a pretty highly recruited player. When Lane Kiffin got the job in December of 19, one of the first stops he made was to Starkville, and it was to see Luke Altmaier, who had been committed to Florida State at the time, and they flipped him, and they were excited about it. And Luke does a lot of good things. Luke is probably more conservative with the football, which is a good thing at times. It's also something that they've got to wean him off of. They need him to stretch the game vertically. Listen, Ole Miss they were active in the Jack Abraham market a little bit here lately before Jack decided to spend his last college season at Missouri. Ole Miss was trying to get him he's an Oxford kid. They were trying to get him to come down the street basically and play a year at Ole Miss. I don't know that the quarterback situation is anywhere near as settled as Ole Miss would like it to be.
I know Luke Altmaier wasn't perfect by any means in that Sugar Bowl, but I don't know. I saw some things. I saw reason to like him, and you got to remember, too, he's thrown in that situation not expecting to play, and that was a pretty damn good Baylor defense he was facing as well, right?
Yeah. Man, come on. He's late first quarter, right? Middle of the first quarter, and he's over there, thinking, it's pretty cool. I'm in Sugar Bowl, and, it's just kind of fun, and there's all these people here, and look around, big building, and all of a sudden you're in. And, I know you prepare and all that stuff, guys, but come on, right? All the story going into that game was Matt Corral and Matt's last game. I'm talking from an Ole Miss perspective. And, he's not. In the back of his mind, he's not thinking, hey, I'm going to play 70 snaps or whatnot against the Big 12 champ. And like you said, that was one hell of a defense. And, a great defensive coordinator and a head coach who was a great defensive coordinator. Come on now. That's a tall mountain to climb all of a sudden. And you're right. He did do some things against Baylor that night. He had a touchdown throw to Braylon Sanders that, if I recall, that was a seed. Made some nice plays, made some plays with his feet. Yeah, he did some tough things too, and he struggled. And Ole Miss had some offensive line issues that night. That's a credit to Baylor, but yeah, I think the narrative that Luke was just awful that night is really unfair.
When he came in for Corral, Mike Scarborough, who covers LSU, who we have on the show to discuss LSU, sent a text to me immediately. Hey, don't sleep on him. He's pretty good. As far as Altmaier. So I'm glad that, I think Craig's right. He was very impressive. Now, Zach Evans and Ulysses Bentley, two from the Dallas-Fort Worth area, two very, very talented running backs. Evans kind of, you don't know. Obviously talented. Do they have enough carries for both of them?
Yeah, I think so. And I think, if you look at Zach throughout his both high school and college career, he's had trouble staying healthy. You know, he's had some games where he's been the workhorse, and he's had a hard time getting through a season. So I think they'll be judicious with his carries. They brought Bentley in, who's a change of pace guy, a speed guy who can really make things happen in the open field. And then they have another couple of backs that they like, including a freshman, Quinshon Judkins, that they signed. Believe it or not, guys, they signed a high school player who's going to come from high school to college and play. So it's a novel concept. They brought him in, and they like him too. So yeah, I think Evans is going to be their guy, but they've got enough guys to take some of the load off of him when that's necessary. And you know, you guys have seen it. He's really good. Zach is. I mean, he's got a chance behind what I think is going to be a pretty solid offensive line. He's got a chance to make some noise in the SEC.
I think Zach Evans probably, because he's a different kind of guy, Neal, as I'm sure you've seen, and
yeah.
I think maybe the pick of Lane Kiffin to me can speak Zach Evans, maybe more than a lot of coaches, right?
I think so. You know, and you know, we say different, and yeah, and you're right. He's different. Different kid, but different's not always bad if you have people who can communicate with him and understand him. And I think you're right. I mean, Lane's a different cat too. So, they probably can kind of speak the same language, like you said. And look, every running back you've ever been around, if they're opening holes for you and they're giving you the ball and you're getting yards, you're typically pretty happy. I think, it's the most misunderstood part about Lane Kiffin as an offensive coach is that for whatever reason, people continue to do this narrative of, oh yeah, boy, they're pass happy and they throw it all over the place. No, they run the ball a lot in Lane Kiffin's first 2 seasons at Ole Miss. And he ran the ball a lot at Alabama. He ran it a lot at FAU. He's not only balanced, they tip run game a little bit.
That was a misconception with the Art Browse offense. And then you got the Jeff Lebby connection there, but everybody thought all they do is throw the ball. It's like, no, they had a damn good running game. Like, they would run over your face. That was kind of the setup. The throws were the setup to run over your face. But, Neal, what was kind of the theme of spring? Obviously, disappointing end, a changing of the guard with Matt Corral no longer there, as well as some other stars from the past few years, some changes on the staff. What was kind of the theme, if you will, of spring football for Ole Miss?
Yeah, it was just so many new faces. It was like an orientation. I mean, they've got so many new guys, new coaches, like you said, lots of new players on both sides of the ball. After 2 seasons of, where there's no question who the quarterback is, suddenly there's a lot of questions about who the quarterback is. And they had a really successful season last year. I mean, Sugar Bowl notwithstanding, they know they ran into a buzzsaw that night, and that certainly in the way they wanted it to end, but I don't know that it takes away from the success that they had. But you've got to move on from that, as I'm sure Baylor's talking about, right? I mean, what happens in 2021 is great, and it's awesome, and you get the rings and the memories and stuff, but I'm not sure what it does for you moving forward if you're not ready to go. And so there's a lot of that. I just think this is a program that has I think they've positioned themselves to compete. I think Lane is doing it in a little different way, and some people are having to sort of adjust to the idea of this team building as opposed to program building mentality. And this is a really interesting season coming up because the way Ole Miss's schedule is set up, guys, I don't know if you've looked at it. Their schedule is really favorable out of the gate, and it is really unfavorable in the close. I mean, their last 4 games, Alabama at home, at Arkansas, at Texas A&M. I don't have the order right, but and then I think it's at Texas A&M, then Alabama at home, then at Arkansas, then Mississippi State at home. I mean, it is a tough slog down the stretch. So they've got some time to figure out who they are, but they better do it because if they're not a really good football team come late October, it's going to get rough.
Yeah, and if Auburn or LSU jump up where they're capable of doing, because they have done it before. No, I'm not saying national championship level, but both those schools get a little bit better. You're talking about it could be a battering ram of Auburn, LSU, A&M, Alabama, Arkansas, then of course, as you mentioned, but Mississippi State, the chance to be really, really, pretty good. The Lane Kiffin thing, he's done a great job. He really, really has. I mean, he's quirky and all that, but it seems like that he's got that fan base excited, right? They showed up in droves wherever they go.
Yeah. I mean, look, he's made them relevant, if nothing else. I mean, last year they were a whisper away from being sort of in the playoff conversation, right? I mean, if they had not lost that game at Auburn where some of the injuries kind of began to pile up on them, they would have been at least in the conversation somewhat. And look, you guys aren't having me on if this is a 5-7 type of program. You're not talking Ole Miss football in Texas in middle of May. I mean, the fact that Lane has made Ole Miss part of the national conversation speaks to the job that he's done.
Neal, I saw Kiffin make some comments, I guess a couple weeks ago about NIL. I know he's made various comments. They've obviously feasted on the transfer portal and have had success with NIL. What do you think is he really all for rules changes? Do you think that's just lip service? Where do you think he kind of falls in all of that?
You're asking me to read Lane Kiffin's mind?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, sorry. Yeah, I mean, it's just so windy. I don't know. I think he knows where he is. He's at a program where if NIL is going to go unchecked, he can't compete at the high school level. Most people can't, guys. I mean, listen, I had a very prominent college football person tell me that if NIL went unchecked, meaning it's a free for all. I know that we give lip service that you can't use it as a recruiting tool, if you will. That's utter BS. Come on.
Right.
I mean, give me a break. That's the most ludicrous. Anyway, he said, there's going to be 3 programs that are going to emerge as national powers: Texas A&M, and USC. And I mean, hey, look around. I mean, that's kind of what's happening. I mean, that's why Nick Saban's whining, frankly. It's why Kirby Smart and Nick Saban both, the day before they played the national championship game in Indianapolis, got on there talking about NIL, went to the podium and used that pulpit to talk about NIL that day. I mean, they know that even programs as prestigious and powerful as Alabama and Georgia are going to have a hard time staying at the very top of the mountain in an unchecked NIL world. Well, Lane's been at Alabama. Lane's at Ole Miss now. I mean, he knows the score. It's one of the reasons that he has dived as deep as he has into the transfer portal. It is a way to get a Zach Evans to Ole Miss. I mean, they tried to get Zach Evans out of high school to Ole Miss. They weren't able to do it. They tried to. You weren't going to get a Jackson Dart out of high school to Ole Miss. Certainly not in this environment. I mean, they're struggling. They can't get Arch Manning to take them seriously. I think Lane's just being honest. The one thing I really appreciate about Kiffin, and he's quirky and all that stuff, but if you ask him a big picture question, I do think he tries to give you a heartfelt, big picture answer. And I mean, he keeps saying it. It's just become professional football, and he's exactly right. There's no way around that. If you're at a Power 5 program, this is pro football now.
Neal, you mentioned Arch Manning. How bad would the Ole Miss fans take it? I mean, most of the teams that he's looking at are in the SEC or going to be in the SEC. Would they take it if he did wind up at another SEC program?
I think they, at this point, assume that he will. Mm-hmm. Most of them are fine with it. They realize that it just wasn't meant to be for any number of reasons. I think there's some people that are irritated or frustrated or disappointed or whatnot, but there hasn't been some insane backlash about it. I think there's been an acceptance that it's not going to happen, and I think there's also a sense of comfort that comes with Lane Kiffin has always been able to take whatever he gets at quarterback and make it work.
Neal, we appreciate it, man. It was great talking to you leading up to the Sugar Bowl, even last year when Ole Miss was doing well, and also now. We appreciate your time. Look forward to the upcoming season.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
y'all have a good summer.
RebelGrove.com, Neal McCready. He's another one that I believe I should have asked him that he moved.